So, The Flash Season 4 Episode 20. Another good episode. Well done, Flash. Finally, you're kind of getting back into the groove or more like into the tone of what I've always kind of wanted you to be this season. This is another episode, kind of like Episode 15, Episode 7, Episode 18, 19, and now 20, therefore she is, where it's kind of felt like the show that I've always wanted it to be, like in previous seasons. And I think it's kind of a shame that it's taken, like, obviously, towards the finale of the season for the stakes to be high, for it to kind of almost have to have that serious tone, because I don't see how they honestly could do what they've been doing earlier on in the season with the really funny and like eccentric episodes. They just couldn't do that with what's going on now. So I've just been thanking the stars that we finally had a couple of good episodes with, you know, everything, you know, piling up with what DeVoe's plan and the Age of Enlightenment, you know, means for the world and Team Flash. But this episode also revealed a couple of things, and I'm talking about the Mystery Girl, which is pretty sweet, but I'll get into that a little bit later. But before I go into this breakdown fully, guys, if you're new to this channel, why not subscribe to see more Flash videos on this channel? And if you go on to like this video, why not hit that like button, as it really does show your support for the channel, and I very much so appreciate it. Now, one of my most favorite parts of this episode was the flashback. Now, therefore she is. Let's first get this out of the way. Obviously, this episode was very heavily revolved around Marlize, you know, Clifford DeVoe's wife, aka the mechanic, if you will, or the technician, as DeVoe refers to her. I've always said this about DeVoe as well. One thing I've always liked about him is he's a villain where you kind of can relate to him a little bit, like compared to, you know, how he was before. With episode 7, we saw this sweet guy who just wanted to better humanity, but now in this episode it's kind of mix and matched it a little bit. Even though we see the romantic person that he was beforehand, you see how even when he was a normal guy, and they really didn't show this in episode 7, they really kind of wanted you to feel for the Thinker. And now in episode 20, therefore she is, you can see that he absolutely hates technology and what man has done with technology, and he's even been about basically resetting the human mind, even when he was well, very human, because as we all know at the minute, he finds emotions trivial. So he's basically kind of, in a Star Wars reference, more machine than man. But yeah, my point being, even though I was fooled into kind of feeling for him a little bit in episode 7, he kind of had this going all along. And we saw in the flashbacks as well, Marlize, when she first read that journal, she says things like, "You don't believe these things you wrote in this journal, do you? Clifford truly does think that man's inventions will destroy the whole human race, and it's a realist awakening." And then you have Marlize on the other end of the spectrum, which is good to see, because she's always been so devoted from what we've seen this whole season to DeVoe. But then she said that she thinks technology actually betters mankind, but eventually she does come full circle, as we know, and helps the Thinker with his Age of Enlightenment plan. So now, after this whole kind of disagreement they had of, you know, philosophies of what, you know, should be okay with the human race in terms of technology, and Clifford obviously thinks it's the complete worst thing, she went away to Kenya. I found it so fascinating how Marlize can go from saying, "I can't be with someone who thinks society is a disease, and I just wish you could show the same amount of compassion to humanity as you do to me," but then as soon as, like, all the work she had done got trampled upon by a group of people who were, you know, murdering people and stopped her and destroyed her water purifier all the way in Kenya, Marlize then very interestingly came around to Clifford's way of thinking, seeing what technology, for example these guns, has done to humanity, and she's just like, yeah, let's completely reset their mind. And she was just like, "Enlighten them, Clifford." Now, I thought this was very interesting. As I said, it went from kind of the polar opposite to what Clifford thought. She was all about technology, Clifford wasn't. To full circle of her just being fully fledged with the Age of Enlightenment plan, and you can see why she supports her husband so much throughout the first half of the season, which we've seen already. I thought that was a really cool story. Obviously, as I said, this episode is mainly about her, and I thought the flashbacks were a beautiful way of showing it, even though the reveal of what happened at the end with her, which still shows that she does have a little bit more of a human mind than Clifford's robot mind. Now, during this episode, Clifford and Marlize have gathered everything they needed. I believe one of the main important parts of this episode was alloy 1771. We very importantly learned in this episode that this alloy is a solar panel, and it's constructed of metal that absorbs and multiplies the sun's energy at 400% efficiency, I believe Iris said to Barry when they were investigating this all, because obviously Team Flash were just like, "Oh my god, we need to figure out what the heck DeVoe DeVoe is building or planning, because it's going to end with us ultimately screwed. And the way Team Flash were kind of chasing DeVoe during this episode and trying to figure out stuff was through the drama that is Siski I think that's what Breach calls him, Siski, Cisco and Gypsy, and there was some drama there, but I'll talk about that in a second. Now, leading into the whole more machine than man thing, that I kind of really like how has separated DeVoe this season from the guy he kind of was, even though he had the same plans, but he was still human nevertheless. And this was one of the turning points of modern Marlies compared to, you know, obviously what we were talking about earlier, is when Clifford was turning the gun on that security guard. Now, that was very interesting. It was completely unnecessary to kill him, and Marlies even spoke out about it, but then he still went ahead and did it anyway. I think that is a perfect example of how Clifford you know, has absolutely no empathy or compassion for human or just lives anymore, despite his whole plan being about saving humanity. And that is what Marley said, you know, we're meant to be saving them. But anyway, let's get on to the Cisco and Gypsy drama. In this episode, obviously, there's been a bit of tension between Gypsy and Cisco, because he's been waiting quite a while to answer Breach's offer about accepting the job and being, you know, what like Gypsy is, and going around breaching and, you know, just saving, almost being a guardian of the galaxy. Well, kind of getting bounties, if you know what I mean. But anyway, Cisco obviously doesn't necessarily really want to do that, but I don't think he's wanted to admit that to Gypsy or even himself, really, because he's conflicted. He obviously loves his role in Team Flash, and I don't want him to go anywhere, but he obviously loves this woman, Gypsy, Cynthia, a lot. And obviously he's conflicted about taking this job because it would mean spending more time for her. And in this episode, between those two, I really liked Carlos's performance, because he did a really good job, especially when he teared up. He had the problem of wanting to wake up every day beside Gypsy, rather than her being on a whole different bloody planet, or, you know, whole different multiverse even, which is just, you know, I understand that is quite a long distance relationship, to say the least. So when they were co-vibing, they weren't exactly on the same page. One worked out, but it didn't work exactly the way it was supposed to. And then when they co-vibed again, they just flew across the room, like we've seen happen with Cisco before when he tried vibing something that, you know, to do with DeVoe. But unfortunately, I'm pretty sure they broke up, right? I'm pretty sure they did. Cisco accompanied Gypsy to her Earth, and she was just apologizing. It's not like they don't have feelings for each other, or Gypsy doesn't have any at all for Cisco, but she is a part of her DNA, like her carrying on her work. You know, that's something that she just can't give up, and Cisco kind of knows that. So it's kind of one of those breakups where they would still be together, really, if it weren't for the fact that there wasn't this almost unstoppable force that's keeping them apart, because she would have to literally give up everything in her life, and Cisco would have to do the same. Different multiverses. I mean, the only way it would really work out, the way they've put it across anyway in this episode, is if, you know, Cisco or Gypsy was already on, you know, whoever's Earth, on the same Earth. So that story for me was okay. Like, I get it. I kind of sad that they're breaking up. I don't know if it will last, but at the same time, it does kind of make sense. It really does. I did think to myself, though, but at the same time, how hard is it to just open a breach and just step in across the multiverse? I mean, it's not exactly so long distance if you can just jump through a portal and, hey, I'm here. Unless Gypsy is working all the time. But this is where you get into kind of, is this a plot hole or isn't it a plot hole, or is this being too picky? Who knows? And also, let's just talk about the accelerated man. Why did they have to get him in? There's this behind the scene picture of him, the actor who plays the accelerated man, on set. It's like if they just did the little purple blur, you know, his lightning. Why did they get the actor in to do it? Like, I was expecting another scene when we saw him run through their CCPD, but no, that was it. You would definitely have to think we are going to get more out of the accelerated man at some point. That's why they keep him somehow here, but yeah, that was very disappointing. Now, there's quite a bit of Harry in this episode. So at the beginning, he was obviously trying to help get the Killer Frost out in Caitlin through the help of Cisco's vibe power. That wasn't working out so much, and incidentally, because of this, you know, with Harry trying to talk sciencey but not necessarily working out, the team figured out what's wrong with him, and they're all on board to, you know, get him better. But that should hopefully be happening next episode, considering that's called Harry and the Harrison, so I'm really looking forward to that. What we did learn, which I thought was pretty cool, and this was through Cecile's mind power, and I don't necessarily mind Cecile as a character, but I don't know how I always feel about her at the same time. But I suppose what purpose she played in this episode was relevant, because she was the one, after all, who helped Harry figure out, or, you know, was responsible for figuring out that the more brain power power Harry uses, or the more intelligence or the more ideas he comes up with, the quicker his, you know, intelligence is going. So they kind of figured out a way, since Cecile is obviously got the power of reading minds, she can read Harry's mind for him and write the ideas down, so she's technically, temporarily smart, if you will. So that's pretty cool. It's a way of keeping Harry contributing to the team until he gets better, and Cisco did confirm in this episode that it is reversible, so you would have to think that this is all going to be okay in the end, unless it's some tragic, very big surprise that they can't do it after all. So, but anyway, I thought that was kind of cool. Now, I thought the battle between Team Flash and DeVoe was brilliant. And you know what? It reminds me of what happened in Infinity War. With no spoilers, but you know that moment I mean, when they're trying to pull that thing off, it kind of was like that. They could have actually really owned DeVoe there. They really could have, because he was caught by surprise. I love it when the Flash came in and just completely punched DeVoe and he went flying. DeVoe was really taken by surprise, but you know, once again, thanks to Marlize, and this was the straw that broke the camel's back for her. She allowed Gypsy to live because DeVoe was about to kill her, and we heard that line that we saw from the trailer where she says, "This isn't a part of our plan. Our plan is to save them," and he's just like, "We can't save everyone, my love." And she finally took a stand and was just like, "Perhaps, but I won't, you know, watch you kill an innocent life again." And that was just a great kind of ending to you know, a complete ending to all the flashbacks that kind of, you know, how she was polar opposite, then she came full circle, and then Clifford isn't the man she recognizes anymore, so she kind of, it was just like, "No, I'm not having this. You're not the guy that you said you were all about." And this led to that grand slam moment back in that pocket dimension where the Thinker and the Mechanic hang out, aka, you know, DeVoe and Marlize, where she was sat in the chair. It was temporarily healing her a bit faster, which is what DeVoe explained. Pretty cool, pretty cool. But then Marlize just, you know, had that almost dark side look on her face, and it's almost, you know, this is very predictable, you know, with Marlize turning sides. But she was just like, you know, initially we set out to enlighten the world, but now you want to rule it, Clifford. And she was just like, "I am leaving you. My husband is dead." And this is what I've been saying for the longest time. This is not the man that she kind of fell in love with. And I love this line. It was the personification of what is happening with DeVoe at the minute. And she said, "My husband is dead, the Thinker's first victim." And I thought that was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant line. I know that sounds kind of weird, but sometimes lines are just really cool, especially in a moment where she's just like, "Yeah, I'm changing sides." And then she proceeds to disappear in her chair, and you would have to think that maybe, I don't know if it will be happening next episode just by everything else that is going on next episode, but maybe the episode after that, or maybe at the end credits of the next episode, we might see Marlize contact Team Flash, or maybe pop up in her chair at the very end of all of what is happening in Harry and Harrison. But unfortunately, I'm also predicting that maybe Marlize might die by the end of all of this. Maybe like that's when Clifford will come to his senses, but it'll be too late. I can imagine this being one of the grand finale Big Bang thingies that happens with the Age of Enlightenment. I can just see it now. But maybe that would be too predictable. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below with that. And finally, let's talk about the mystery girl. Wow. So, you know, she first said, like, "Wow, super pregnant. Looks like you're due 21 days from now." And that is obviously going to be very spot on. And we all know this because, guys, it got revealed that she's a speedster. Now, this isn't very surprising, but the surprising and, well, not necessarily surprising, but really cool part to it is her lightning was like purpley and yellowy, multiple colors. And that was kind of the colors of what we see when Barry's in the Speed Force these days, or like the Speed Force Lightning Storm coming down with several different colors, or just like yellow, red, kind of white. There was some insane hints with what she had to say as well, with the lines of saying, "This gift is from like somebody who understands how precious time is," and right now that's all we've got, relatively speaking. So she is obviously, you know, since we know she's a speedster and she's probably not from this time, she would have had to travel all the way back in time. So guys, this is amazing. I would love to know your thoughts in terms of, you know, quote-unquote Dawn Allen being a speedster. Who do you think she is? Because she seemed to act very well. She seemed to be really happy with Joe and Cecile. She was really on point with them and focused on them. But as soon as Iris started to come around, she got that like face on again. She was like, "Oh god," and she kind of dusted as soon as, you know, Iris got involved. So the fact that the face she pulls and the fact she runs away as soon as Iris is even mentioned or nearby, maybe she's so petrified of Iris seeing her and that will screw up the timeline somehow. So is she kind of directly a descendant of Iris's, maybe Jenny Ognot's, or maybe even one of the Tornado Twins? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, but I plan on making a separate video on this entirely to talk about this a bit longer. But yes, guys, this was a really good episode, to be honest, and I just wish I just wish the Flash will keep this up. As I said, I've already done my trailer breakdown by the time you're watching this video, and it's already up. And with Armonet Black coming back next episode, it just doesn't look like what we've had the past few episodes, which is what, in my opinion, is perfect for the Flash. The perfect tone, everything. But let me know your thoughts in regards to that in the comments below. Have you been enjoying this episode, and do you think that this is what a really good episode or example of an episode of what this season should be? Or do you not see how this is different from the really happy-go-lucky tone they've had in other episodes, and do you disagree with what I've said there? Other than that, guys, I really appreciate it if you like this video, as it really does show you support for the channel. And if you're brand new and you've made it this far, why not subscribe for more Flash videos just like this? I want to say thank you to each and every one of my patrons. They're appearing on the screen around here. Check out the link at the top of my description if you're curious about becoming a patron. I'd really appreciate it if you check that link out. It's just patreon.com/BobaTalks. Other than that, guys, I do have a Discord server. I do have social media links popping up on the screen around here. But apart from that, guys, that is everything I have to say today about the Flash. Really good. I really hope it keeps up towards the finale. But other than that, guys, hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.